Yo, what's up, streamers, man? How you guys doing? This is a podcast. I finally got it together. Took a lot of coordination to get this done. But yeah, this is exactly what we promised. On Sundays, we're going to do what we call the Spiel. We're just going to give a little update on our favorite sports topics, covering everything from the NFL to the NBA. So, I hope you guys enjoy this. So, format's going to be, we're just going to do a normal question with a debate, similar to your first take, undisputed. You know how it is. So, without further ado, I'm going to introduce the cast. So, it's yours truly. It's a Muslim. You know me on Fortnite. You know how it is. Over to my left, we got Scubastevemr on Twitch. You might know him as Loud to the Pack. You've seen him on the It's a Muslim Twitch channel. You've seen him live. And also LotusTile17 as well. So, let's get it going.
How's it going, viewers?
How you guys doing? You guys feeling good? You guys having a good Sunday?
Are you talking to the chat or are you talking to us? You gotta make it cool.
No, it's all good. It's all good. Nah, I was just.
I don't know. Was that
time
question?
Yeah.
I'm having a good Sunday. I don't know about you guys, but the Steelers whooped some ass today. So
yeah, they did.
Having a pretty good Sunday as well. Had to bring out the classic Bumblebee.
Bumblebee, and coming to our first topic, what did you guys think of the Steelers and Falcons today?
So it's a really good game, Steelers and Falcons game. Steelers really showed up today. More impressed by the defense more than anything today. We also revitalized that running game. James Conner had a very great game, bounced back. He had a very downer for the past 3 weeks. So it's nice to see him bounce back. And I really, overall, think I more so liked our discipline today. Not as many penalties. And like I said, our defense was more so focused today. We really held Julio, to very pedestrian numbers. So really liked the performance by the Steelers today.
I mean, yeah, I have to agree. A lot of people are saying, McQuay's saying that the defense deserves most of the credit today, shutting down a really good Falcons offense. I think that's true. But we can't sleep on what the offense did as well. It took a while early on. They started strong, but it took a while for Ben and AB to find the connection again. But once they did, they showed it was lights out, as always. And then people really worried about AB. Is he on the decline in his 9th season here? Is he going downhill? You look at his numbers through 5 games, he's on pace for 112 catches, about 1,200 yards, and 16 TDs. And that would be his worst season in the last 6 years, but that's still all pro numbers right there. So clearly he's still the best in the game and one of the best of all time. And it was only a matter of time before they got going.
I think that I think the offense started off a lot better than we had expected.
Definitely.
But I mean, do you guys think it's concerning with some of the play calling, especially that we saw, in the red zone, particularly with the play of Ben Roethlisberger, and also at times it felt like Randy or Ben or someone, thought it was a good idea to have Ridley out there and have him out there running when James Conner had head full of steam and was ready to go. What are your guys' thoughts on the way the offense has been performing in key critical moments?
Well, so me and you, I don't know, me, you, and Kufo have our text, and I was trying to communicate to you guys. I don't know Ridley the ball. It's okay to have him in there when Connor needs a rest, but you should probably throw the ball. And the announcers talked about it that you have to run it sometimes when he's in there. Otherwise, you're giving a cue away to the defense that whenever Ridley's in, they're going to throw it. But literally, it seemed like every time he was in, they were handing it off to him for no gain. I was hoping to see them at least try to throw the ball a little bit when Connor's out of the game, because Ridley's hasn't been a real legit running back in at least 5 years in the NFL, so I don't know why they're trying to do that.
Yeah, I agree. I've always questioned some of Randy's calls, and especially in key situations. Especially how I agree with you guys. You bring in Ridley and you hand him the ball. It pretty much either gives off the cue of we're gonna pass more times than not, and then when we do hand the ball off to him, it's really not a gain. Especially in a game today where Connor had a full head of steam. You just got to feed the beast that's rolling. About Ben, I think sometimes with the connection in the red zone with AB is he tries to force things, as we saw week 1. When he was under duress, he tried to force it to him and ended up being picked off by Denzel. Then we see this week as well, he like forces it again and, you know, waited a little too long. Sometimes I think, you know, it is just their connection. You know, if he would have saw him earlier, could have easily been a touchdown. But as we saw today, their connection is getting better and is only going to get better as every week goes by. So not too worried. It's still early in the season. And, you know, we did the bigger thing by getting a win today, which was more important.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. On the flip side of the ball, should Matt Ryan and the Falcons be worried about the position that they're in right now? You know, with the Saints, you know, with the Panthers winning against the Giants today, you know, is it panic mode for them, or do they just ride the storm? They had injuries such as Devontae Freeman that were holding them back, and it seemed like, you know, they got things going, but then I think the Steelers' defense played a lot better than a lot of people expected.
Definitely. I think the Falcons do have to worry. The NFC South is never easy. As you said, you know, you have the Saints, always perennial contenders. You have Cam Newton and the Panthers getting a very, very impressive comeback win today. And even the Buccaneers, you know, in a better spot than we had anticipated, with Winston being out for the first 3 games, with that Fitzmagic era going on the first couple of weeks. But I think they do have to worry. I don't think a lot of it is on them. As you said, you know, there is a lot of key injuries. With Keanu Neal, Deion Jones is a big factor. I mean, he is like he's pretty much there. Ryan Shazier as Ryan Shazier is for the Steelers. He covers sideline to sideline faster than most linebackers. Probably say he is the fastest linebacker outside of Shazier when he was healthy. So those are big losses, and you know, the offense has picked up this year. Steve Sarkisian's starting to unlock it a little bit more, but you still see there are some issues. So I won't say there is a cause for concern because it's still a little early in the season, but you want to be a little worried, just a little worried.
Wait, I don't see how you're going to cause for concern. I'm hitting the panic button now. They're 1-4. It's early in the season, but the NFC is, I think, a much deeper conference than the AFC. It's much harder to come back from a rough start in the NFC South with the schedule they have still to go. So they were just in the Super Bowl 2 years ago. We saw, you know, they didn't really have this hangover. They back, had a good run in the playoffs, almost made it back to the NFC Championship. But this year, it's just looking like things aren't clicking for them. Julio still hasn't found the end zone. He's got 3 touchdowns in, his last 21 games or so. Ridley looked like he's a nice bonus for them to addition. But, I mean, if the defense is this decimated by injuries, we also didn't mention Grady Jarrett, who's their star defensive lineman. He wasn't out there. And then McKinley missed what looked like at least a quarter or so of play there today, too. Their only other really star on that D-line. And so without them, and then both safeties going down, with no Deion Jones, who, like you said, is just amazing linebacker for them. So I would be pretty shocked at this point if the Atlanta Falcons make the playoffs this year.
Could see a 6 seed.
Yeah, well,
so it's a tough NFC. Anything can happen.
Yeah, we'll see. Well, looking ahead to next week, and the Steelers go up to Paul Brown Stadium, you know, what are your guys' thoughts on the chances of the black and gold going up there and stealing the win from what a lot of people are saying are the best team in the division? Some people are even saying top 5.
You're saying top 5 team in the whole NFL, the Cincinnati Bengals, is what people are saying?
Yeah, I think we had Stephen A. Smith say that on his show on ESPN.
Credible source there, but no. The Bengals, what are they, 4-1 now? Yeah, they've looked good, but they look like they stole that win a little bit in Miami. Pretty crazy deflection on that Michael Johnson pick 6, if you guys saw that.
Yeah, I saw that.
And then came around and did their job and finished the win, but I think Miami was a bit overhyped too to start 3-0. And then we saw what happened to them last week in New England. They came back to reality. It looked like they were going to still win Cincinnati, but I don't know. I think the Steelers and the Bengals, that's going to be a good game, definitely. The Bengals look like they'd have in the past, a potential 11-5, steal the division maybe, but until they win a playoff game at all in our lifetimes in this generation, I don't see why we should even discuss the Cincinnati Bengals until January comes around. I don't know. That's just me.
I have to agree with you there. You know, we've seen this before with the Bengals plenty of times year in and year out. Start out pretty hot, You know, they may have a little slump somewhere in the middle, end up 11-5, 10-6, get that playoff spot, wild card, losing the first round. Pretty much same thing this year. As we saw, they lost. They looked pretty vulnerable against every team they played. You know, Cam and the Panthers snuck out one and was able to beat them there. They got lucky, I would say, on the final drive against a very hurt Atlanta Falcons team. And even today, you know, pulling out a win against as you said, a lucky team to start out 3-0 in the Dolphins. And as we see, they just dropped 2 games in a row. So I would say the record is a little fraudish, but, you know, wins are wins. And so I would say they're in a nice spot, but I do think the Steelers are hot right now. I do think we are pretty serious about taking control of this division, and we typically have been having their number the past few seasons. And I think, you know, with that AB and Ben connection growing stronger and stronger, the emergence of Juju Smith, as we see Vance McDonald, Connors continue to be hot, I see us coming out of there with a W.
Yeah, I really think the key to the Steelers' success is the emergence of T.J. Watt. And I think as long as he can play at a Pro Bowl level, and we've seen him play it during the season, and when he does, we either win or tie the game. Yeah. So, you know, I think we have a lot of potential there. And I think regardless of whatever happens in the Bengals season, I do think Coach Marvin's seat is hotter than it normally is. So we'll see what happens. Let's move on to the next topic. We got big game tonight in Texas.
Texas.
So, question is, which team is a better Texas team? And is that Texas team going to win tonight?
You know, I'm going to have to go with the better Texas team being the Houston Texans. I like that defense. I think as a whole, once that defense gets reeling, it is a better defense. It has top 5 potential. J.J. Watt has shown that he is back, and, you know, he's only going to get stronger and stronger as the year goes on. I still want to see the continued presence of Whitney Merciless as he comes back from an injury because he was out. I also want to see Tyrann Mathieu play a little bit better. But I do like the offense, minus the running game a little bit. Lamar Miller hasn't impressed that much, but I do like the passing game with Deshaun Watson. His connection with Will Fuller to take the top off of the defense is amazing. DeAndre Hopkins, top 5 receiver, as we see, you know, does it week in and week out. Crazy catches, acrobatic catches, sideline catches, and I like their functionability more than I do the Cowboys. As we see, it's pretty much feed the ball to Zeke, and we see they have some potential, but, you know, the offense can get very stagnant in the passing game, and I don't like their chances against, you know, a emerging Texans defense.
Yeah, so when you look at the defenses, it looks like, I mean, J.J. Watt looks like he's getting back to form, and then you look at the Cowboys, a guy who doesn't really, I don't know, it's weird, he plays in Dallas, I don't know if he gets all the credit and respect he deserves. DeMarcus Lawrence is having another amazing season,
He is
arguably a top 3 defensive lineman last year in the league. And he's doing it again for them this year, but, you know, they can't do it alone as they realize that both of the defenses are. I mean, as good as they play, the rest of them, the back end has to hold up. So if you give it a push on the defensive side of the ball, you look at the offense, and like you said, DeAndre Hopkins, Will Fuller, amazing receivers, and look at the Cowboys, real lack of talent at the receiver spot. No more Jason Witten. He's up in the broadcast booth doing whatever he's doing on Monday nights. We got, you know, we look at the quarterback spot, the most important position on the field, and who would you rather have, Dak Prescott or, you know, arguably already one of the very best quarterbacks in the NFL, and that's Deshaun Watson. And clearly, I would rather have Deshaun Watson. So it's early right now. The Texans don't look great, but I would pick them to win tonight and get their season rolling.
Yeah, man, I really do think that the Cowboys really is boom or bust on Zeke. It seems like if they can get it to him 30 times, they can control the ball, they can get Dak to be able to, you know, make easy passes and be able to really break down and read these defenses. And I really do think the Cowboys, you know, have a good chance. And we'll see about the Texans, and we'll see how can they really keep it up the entire season. I love Deshaun Watson, but, coming off a knee injury, I think it's easy to come week 1, week 2, 4 weeks in. Let's see, like, can we get there the whole season? Can we get there all 16 games? Because if they can, this team is dangerous. This team can blow up. This team can, they can put on 30 points easily. They can keep up with the teams like the Patriots, the Steelers of the AFC, and then they can keep up with the best. So, yeah, I'm super excited about this matchup, and I think it's just going to add, more to week 5. Already how crazy it has been today. So, yeah. So let's move on to the next topic. So let's talk about your top 5 QBs in the NFL. So it seems like there's a consensus, 1A, 1B, 1C, maybe the Tom Brady's, the Drew Breeses of the world, the Aaron Rodgers, and then you have like this big set of QBs that are in this like second tier, there's QBs like Ben, and like even some people put like a Russell Wilson in that tier. People, you have the Matt Ryans of the world, you have the Jared Goffs of the world. So who do you guys consider the top 5 QBs in the NFL?
Well, I think it all depends on how we're judging this this era of like top 5 QBs. Sometimes I think people base top 5 being on arm talent. Other times I think people do it based off of accolades and accomplishments and that resume that's there. So for me, as you said, that 1A, 1B, 1C tier, I always say the top 3 quarterbacks of the league, undisputed, are Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers, Drew Brees. And pretty much in no order of how you want to do who's better out of Aaron Rodgers and Tom Brady. Just depends on what you're looking at. But then I would also say, and I know a lot of people may give me a lot of flack for it, and a lot of people may say there'll be some bias there, but Big Ben to me is still a top 5 quarterback there. When you look at what he's done in the league, when you look at what he's still capable of, and I know a lot of people will say his connection and sometimes like his interception numbers are up there. But hey, like he's a gunslinger, and more times than not, he always has like a 2-to-1 touchdown to interception ratio every season. So for me, it's one of those things. He is still there. He's still accomplished. He still has it. As we saw today, beautiful 47-yard pass to AB for a touchdown. It's perfect between 2 defenders. He can still make those throws. So for me, he's still in there. And for not the 5th spot, we'll have to give it to Russell Wilson. I know a lot of people probably say like a Matt Ryan, maybe even like a Carson Wentz after just one season. For me, I would say Russell Wilson because of pretty much his impact on the Seattle offense. He pretty much is everything on the offense. He's won a Super Bowl. He's made the incredible plays, the unimaginable plays, in crunch time. So for me, top 5 quarterbacks would have to be Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers, Drew Brees, Big Ben, Russell Wilson.
I'm sitting here and it's like you're just painting my argument for me in my mind. I'm trying to have a different argument. So the one thing that I think I can say is how I would change my list from you if you're ordering them in that way, is that I put the bad man, Aaron Rodgers, number 1 for me right now. I've stood by that argument for a long time.
Definitely.
And I've always taken flack. I've always had people tell me that it's better, and I see it all the time, and I respect the hell out of them. And if we're talking right now, is that what we're talking? Not the greatest of all time, right? We're talking the top 5 quarterbacks right now. And I know he won the MVP last year, and he's been to the last 2 Super Bowls. But who would you rather have right now? I mean, Rodgers has never had Belichick as his coach. He's had Mike McCarthy. So look at the comeback against the Bears to start the season. So yeah, I mean, I can't really add much more about everything you said. You said it perfectly. I still think Big Ben's clearly top 5 Q. He's on pace for over 5,000 yards, right, this year. He was leading the league coming in, if I'm not wrong. So, I mean, he's looked vulnerable early. He always takes some time to get going, it seems like. But, it looks like they might be writing that shit. We'll get a lot better picture of that next week. He always struggles against Cincinnati, whether it's at home or on the road, especially on the road. So I don't know. We could be in for another 3-4 interception performance coming. But we'll see. I still think just based off that resume. But if we're talking right now, I still think he also deserves that top 5 spot, and so does Russell Wilson. I want to say maybe Deshaun Watson or Mahomes, but they're just knocking on the door right now. So I'd say 1 Aaron Rodgers, 2 Tom Brady, 3 Drew Brees, 4 Big Ben, 5 Russell Wilson, all Super Bowl winners, proven champions.
Proven champions.
Yeah, and I think the argument, and I think it is warranted against Ben Roethlisberger, is his decision making, especially late in games, being able to manage the game, knowing what to do with the clock, knowing like what we should be running. Today we saw it was 2nd and goal. He's just throwing the ball up to AB when, he could easily, take that 1 yard or 2 yard run if he really wants it, or just throw it out. And then we just keep it going because he was already outside the tackle box. Yeah. And we've seen this every game, even on games where he's successful. He does, he's a double-edged sword, right? Like it's. The reason why he's so successful is the same reason why he will blow up and just have a really bad game. And, it reminds me of Elway. It reminds me of Favre, that's just who he is. So we have to live and die by him. And, I do think he has the potential to make it even without Le'Veon. But I do think it all starts with him. If he can keep his composure, we'll be all right. And I think the other thing that will really control the game against Cincinnati is how is Boz going to be? How is Boz going to be when he shows up on Sunday? Is he going to miss these, extra pointers? Or is he going to be consistent like he has been over the past 2 years? Because if he doesn't show up, we're not going to win these close games. We need him to be there. That's why we paid him. So
we definitely need his abilities come November and December when these games get closer, especially playoff time.
Yeah. I was going to say, segueing into the top 5, it seems like there's really no argument there. So, what do you guys think in terms of the young quarterbacks? These 4-year or younger, under 25 quarterbacks. Who's your top 5 in that, kind of realm?
In that realm, I definitely think you have to put Patrick Mahomes. As we've seen, essentially, I call this man a rookie. He played all of 1 game last season. Given it was a nice performance, but it was 1 game, and it was kind of it's just like a bit of a curtain call, so not really too much to value out of it. But I love how he has really taken the league by storm. It seems like in the first 5 weeks, he did look more human today. As we saw, he had to throw an interception at some point. He had to look a little rattled at some point, and we saw that the past 2 weeks. But I really love his charisma. I love his arm. He has the best arm in the league. I don't know if anyone has a stronger arm than him right now in the league. And once he really hones in his accuracy and touch even more as he gets older, I think he can end up being the best quarterback in the league. So I would say him. Jared Goff is picking up where he left off last season. Season 1 looked like a potential bust, with him under that Jeff Fisher era. But as we saw Sean McVay, and I think, all that credit has to go to the McVay there, and even Goff's talent, we see that he has true arm talent. We look back at that game against the Vikings, throwing dimes everywhere. There were beautiful passes, beautiful catches by the receivers. So he definitely has some consideration. Carson Wentz. He was the potential MVP last season. If it wasn't for the knee, we might be talking about him as the MVP last season and the MVP of the Super Bowl. And he's even coming back looking pretty strong. Tonight's quarterback, Deshaun Watson. We saw his, firestorm of the league last season before his injury during a practice, which was really awful for the Texans. But he's, looking really good again. And I would probably say that 5th one, maybe Jimmy G. I have to give it Jimmy G.
Is Jimmy G under 25? Can we get a fact check on that?
He's 25. 25.
He's 25? Mm-hmm. All right. I guess I thought he sat behind Brady for longer than he did. So, he's a guy who's obviously... Are you
25
sure?
and under, right? We're talking about 25 and under, right?
I thought I read somewhere that when he plays his next snap, he'll be like 28 years old. I think he's 26.
26.
When did he just turn 26? Oh. That's close. Thought he was 25.
To be fair, he has hasn't started that.
He hasn't started that much, to be fair.
He can be your number 5. All right. So can we get those in order real quick before I make my list?
Get those in order. Mahomes, Goff, Wentz, Deshaun, and then Garoppolo.
Okay. So now I get to disagree with you. Okay. So I like Patrick Mahomes a lot, and you made a really bold statement saying he has the best arm, strongest arm in the league. And I know I've seen the video of him throwing the ball like 80 yards or something his pro day. And we've seen him make all the throws. I mean, light it up against the Steelers, and then the throw that he made the next game. What was that, against the Falcons, right? Just spinning, scrambling, and just running to his right off balance and just a laser into the end zone. But you know who else could make that throw? And I hate to keep bringing it up, is Aaron Rodgers. So until he starts to fade, it's kind of like LeBron. It's like, is there a better athlete in the NBA than LeBron? Freak. Is he a better athlete? He's taller. He might have some attributes on him, but I don't know. It's tough to say. And Matthew Stafford's another guy, if we're talking the strongest arm, the best arm, who has to be, I think, top 3. And then, we can't forget Cam either. So there's a lot of names in that discussion, but that's a separate discussion. Mahomes is up there, and I'll give him that. And numbers are – he finally looked human today against the best defense in the league. And if he had scorched the Jaguars today like he had to everyone else, I would probably agree with you and put him number 1 already. He hasn't lost a game. He won the game today with, from, I guess, special teams, defense. I don't know. I didn't watch the game. But he didn't – he ran for a touchdown, 2 picks, no passing. But if I'm putting number 1, I'm putting Deshaun Watson, a guy who I thought from the bat is going to be one of the best quarterbacks in the league very near future. I didn't know he would be that good that soon, but we saw before he tore his ACL last year, 20 touchdowns in his first 7 games in the league. That's an unreal pace. And he's picking up – it took him a couple games to get going this year, but he's looking like the Deshaun of old if you've been watching him play. So I'm really excited to watch that game tonight. I really think that when Aaron Rodgers loses his crown as the best quarterback in the NFL, it's going to be Deshaun Watson who takes over in the future, whether it's 3-4 years down the road, whether sooner. That depends, I guess, on how many wins he's able to get. He has to make it to the playoffs and prove it there first. But I think he has the talent, the ability, and he is the best QB under 25 right now. Mahomes is definitely looking good enough to be my number 2. Number 3, I would say Wentz, who would have been my rightful pick for MVP last year if he hadn't gotten hurt. And then number 4, I guess Jared Goff has earned it this year so far with his play. I guess we'll have to tune in the second half here soon and see if he's going to stay undefeated in Seattle. It was tied up at the half. But
looking good. And
then number 5, so you're going with Jimmy G, who's, I don't know, technically is he 25? We may or may never know. But I think I'm going to go with an unconventional pick here, a guy who I have a lot of confidence in and who's looking really solid so far, and that's Bake.
I'm glad you like Bake. I'm glad you like Bake.
Mayfield, man, I thought he was the right pick, number 1 overall.
I did too.
I thought, forget all the measurements and everything, any questions about him coming into the draft. I thought Deshaun Watson was clearly the best quarterback in the last year's draft. What was he, the 3rd one taken? I mean, Mahomes looked like maybe that was the right pick too ahead of him, but I think Baker was clearly the best one coming out, and Sam Darnold looks good. He really does. I mean, so he has an argument too there. I believe Baker was the better player from the start, and he's looking like it. He's just infecting that Browns team with a way to win games.
That's swag.
I don't know if he's the reason that they gave up only 9 points to the Ravens, but he got it done in overtime with the big play when it looked like for sure it was going to be another tie. They should have had the win last week, too. I mean, come on. They put up 42 last week. I mean, they deserve that win. That call on Chubb, I don't know what that was. And they tried to screw him again today. I mean, refs were really not doing the Browns any favors at all. But, I mean, I can't believe that kick went in, guys. And the Browns got that win, and they're sitting 2-2-1. With the Steelers for last place. So, they're still in it.
Wow. All right, well, I mean – so what's your final 5 then? Final 5.
Oh, it's 1's Deshaun, 2's Mahomes, 3's Wentz, 4's Goff, 5's Baker. Okay. And Baker could steadily rise. I think he could pass Goff and even Wentz in the next couple of years, but maybe I'm wrong on him.
So speaking of rookies, so is it safe to say that Baker Mayfield is the best rookie, the rookie has impressed you guys the most, after 4 weeks, 4.5 weeks?
If we're talking rookies, I would have to say, I mean, if we're looking at the way the league is driven, it's a quarterback-driven league. I would probably say yes. I mean, I know he's only played a total of 3 games, pretty much. But as Loud to the Pack has said, the way he's energized the team, I personally thought as well, first round pick for the Browns, that was the right pick. There was just something about his swagger. He just had something about this it factor that I knew would translate for them to win games. It was the same way I felt about Jimmy Garoppolo coming out. It's the same way I felt about Deshaun Watson coming out. I just knew there was just you know what? You get this guy, he's going to get you wins. And as we saw, Tyrod goes out, he comes in, the team goes bunkers, and they win. We see that game against Oakland. He puts up 42 points. Honestly, should have won. Refs cheated them out of a win. I don't care what anyone says. Cheated them out of a win. Even if we take it, and then we take it to today, not a high-scoring game, but the passes that he made under pressure on key third downs, especially on that final drive to get the lucky kick in for, as crazy as it seems, 37 yards, and a kicker struggled to make a 37-yard field goal. But hey, Baker has got it. So I would say he's probably impressed me the most out of the rookies this year.
And I mean, obviously he's impressed me too, but if we're talking the rookie of the year so far, I don't know how you can't go with Saquon Barkley. If you guys saw his touchdown, should have helped them win the game today, if not for a 63-yard field goal. But I mean, incredible, the pass from Odell to him to just, every time he gets in the open field, you're not bringing him down. It's incredible. I thought coming in he might be the best running back in the league right off the bat, and it's looking like guys like Gurley and Kamara are proving that, there's still another level to it maybe. I mean, they're just taking their game to a whole new level, but Barkley's in that discussion already. Just like he was drafted as a top 5 or 6 fantasy pick, and he's justifying that today over 150 yards and 2 touchdowns, right? And just incredible plays by him. He's a little boom or bust, He kind of looks for the big play, jumps around the line of scrimmage instead of just hitting the hole. But when he breaks it as much as he does, you'll live with that. I think he's proven that he can do it at the NFL level just like he did in college, and he's definitely one of the most talented players to come to the league in a long time. So it's got to be Saquon Barkley for me right now.
Yeah, no, I mean, both of those rookies, I mean, they made a big impact on their team, and I think the Giants look a lot better than they did, last year, and I also think that the Browns look like they could sneak into the wild card spot as well. And then going back to Sam Darnold, I do think he is the right quarterback for them to build on for the future. It seems like everything is a little bit more stable than it was before. But we'll see, once he has a little bit more expectations, how, they can really make or break a player, especially someone so young like him, going into, big market like New York. So, man, it's an exciting time to be watching the NFL right now. A lot of good young players. So, let's go on to our next question. So, what do you guys think? My bad, we gotta pull this out. So who are your guys' surprise player after 4 weeks? Like the player that, might have been good before, or, might have been good, at a previous time in the past in their career, who have been really excelling and doing well this year.
I have 2 players. I'm going to go with a rookie first. And on the defensive side, Jair Alexander, cornerback for the Packers, actually. It's really hard to come into the NFL, play cornerback, especially in your first year. And from the games I've caught the Packers play, he's actually played more impressively than I thought, especially as a second-round pick there. And he's sparked their secondary. He's been getting interceptions. He's been glued to wide receivers. I really like his play. He really can make a case for defensive rookie of the year if he keeps this up. Little bit of an off game today, but something he could strive for if he continues the play that I saw the first 3 to 4 weeks of the season. I'm gonna go back to a player that's been in the league. who's really surprised me this year. Not too much of a surprise, but I didn't think his production was going to be this high, and that's John Brown. Past 2 seasons really been hurt with different injuries and sickle cell, things like that. But he's really bounced back this year. He's been that deep threat for Joe Flacco that Joe Flacco has seemingly missed for the past few seasons. We saw them try to have that deep threat with Brashad Perriman. Didn't work out. John Brown comes back in healthy, determined, and we see that connection is really strong. Didn't really have quite the game today. It was a very defensive battle today, but throughout the first 4 weeks of the season, he's really impressed me a lot. Didn't think he was going to have a bounce back season as he was going to have right now.
For me, I mean, I'm tempted to just say Patrick Mahomes here, but we've already spent so much time talking about him. I don't want to make it seem like I knew this was coming because I did not think he was good. I thought he was going to be a bit of a bust. I thought they kind of reached for him. A guy who wasn't even going to play for them all of last year at, 8th or 10th overall, wherever they drafted him. But I was wrong on that, as he showed already, and he's just been so impressive to me. So he's the guy who's definitely impressed me the most. I mean, making left-handed throws, making ridiculous lasers all over the field. But if we're not going to talk about him anymore, then the guy who's impressed me that I did not think would be this good is Isaiah Crowell. He's a guy who I've always avoided in fantasy. I might have picked him up off the waiver wire a long time ago, but I did not. He didn't impress me then, and I didn't think he'd be impressing me now. But what did he have today? About 180 yards and 2 touchdowns. And he's only going to get 10 to 15 touches, but he seems to constantly, every now and then, break into those 120-plus yard games with these big, long runs because guys don't like tackling that dude, it looks like. Since he was on the Browns, I remember games like Steelers where they did not like tackling this guy. He would just run people over on the second level in the secondary. And he showed some speed today. If you saw about a 77-yard touchdown run, just completely gashing a pretty good Denver defense. I mean, but like I said, once he gets to that second level, no one really wants to tackle him. So he's a guy I kind of wish I might have taken a chance on this year. That Jets offense is looking better than I think people expected. Robbie Anderson, again, another big game, huge plays. But Crowell is a guy who's surprised me a lot. I don't know if he's going to be enough for the Jets to make a playoff run this year, but I think there's hope in New York.
Like it.
Yeah, for me, I think the biggest surprise after 4 weeks had to be basically the reemergence of Ryan Fitzpatrick down in Tampa Bay and all the Fitz magic that happened in 2 weeks. And the magic's kind of faded out, and they plugged in Jamison, instead of letting him ride it out, and it's kind of taken away from what he did. But even in a losing effort against Pittsburgh, the man put up, I think it was like over 400 yards. Like he was just torching us and killing us, and he had the right receivers out there making plays for him. He made Deshaun Jackson a starter on fantasy again, which who would have thought going into the year.
Yeah.
So it's unfortunate that the organization has to stand by Jameis just because that's the future. But yeah, Ryan Fitzpatrick, for me, I thought he was done. I mean, he was veteran. He was always played well. He always blew up these big pick games and didn't take care of the ball at times. But definitely a serviceable quarterback. I think with the right coaching, definitely can go far and actually take your team to the playoffs. But we'll see what happens with that. So I want to end everything with one final question. There's one big question. So after 4 weeks of the league, who do you guys think is the leading MVP?
I think we've obviously been talking about him a lot. I mean, there's 2 undefeated teams left, and the Rams are still playing as we speak, and Gurley's looking like the Gurley that we've all used to. Offensive Player of the Year last year. He was, I believe, a top 3 maybe in the MVP voting. But it's a quarterback league, and the best quarterback so far has been Mahomes, and they haven't yet, and he's just looking like an unstoppable force. I mean, he's going to slow down eventually, right? I mean, I don't know if he's going to go break Peyton Manning's touchdown record, but he looks like a guy who's just played the best defense in the league today, right? And he still went for over 300 yards, and he ran for a score. So I think there's more big games to come from him, and if he keeps it up, he has a great chance to win MVP. But as of right now, he has to be my pick for MVP of the league, Patrick Mahomes.
I think there's a lot of people we can, pick for that discussion. Especially if we're talking about throughout the course of this season. But if we are talking about right now, and I mean, there's other players. Unfortunately, I mean, it's a quarterback-driven league, as you said. But if we're talking about other players that could get consideration, we look at Alvin Kamara. That guy is electrifying. I mean, you look at the way he runs; it's very, very smooth yet powerful at the same time. I mean, you watch the guys try to tackle him, and they slip off of him. They like bounce off of him. He doesn't look that big, but he's actually a very big back. I think he weighs in around like 220, 225, but he does not look. He looks very slim, agile, quick, but that man has power. And you see how he just, powers that Saints offense. Another guy, who I would say can get some consideration as well, when we look at it is when we look at another quarterback who would deserve some consideration is Jared Goff, especially when we look at how he would probably finish out this game. As you said, Todd Gurley as well. I mean, he powers their offense, a lot. I mean, that Sean McVay Rams offense is very electrifying. But as you said, it's a quarterback-driven league, and I know we talked about him a lot, but through the first 5 weeks, it is Patrick Mahomes. I don't know how we really dispute it. The first 3 weeks, those performances, we look at the comeback win last week. We look at this win this week. He did throw 2 picks, but in key primetime moments, he protected the ball. He ran in for a touchdown. And if he keeps this up, as you said, he could potentially possibly break Manning's record, rookie record, or passing touchdown record for a season. But we will have to see. What that record was,
55.
50, yeah. If he throw with that offense, if he's throwing like 5 touchdowns a game, can potentially happen. But we'll see. That's a rough record to break. But yeah, I don't know how it's disputed. He is, through 5 weeks, the MVP.
Yeah, I think for me after 4, it has to be Mahomes, man. I don't think there's anywhere else you can really go.
Mm-mm.
But let's not forget Uncle Tom and
Yeah.
the amount of work that he's been doing right now, and he's chasing all of these records, these Peyton Manning records. I think he's not even throwing to anyone that's is gonna make first team All Pro,
outside
or
of
anything
Gronk.
like that. Yeah, exactly.
And then Edelman,
and even that Gronk
too.
is in terms of statistically isn't as flashy as some of these other tight ends like a Travis Kelce. So there are other and better options out there, but Tom makes the best out of it. And I think when it comes down to December and we talk about this again, I think he's gonna be right there in that race.
Yeah. When I was making the argument for like the trajectory, by December, I definitely think we can look at Tom Brady as potentially winning another MVP. When you look at it, that Patriots offense is just getting better. He just got Edelman back. James White is being utilized even more in this offense, and we see what he does when Tom Brady throws him the ball. Gronk is still the best tight end in the league. Josh Gordon is an addition to that team, so once he gets healthy, there's a lot they could do. We saw Philip Dorsett is emerging. He's still a little spotty from time to time, but he has made some plays this season. And that defense is surprisingly, has been playing pretty well. And, by November and December, Bill Belichick is going to have them ready for playoff football. And I really like the rookie Sonny Michel. Sony Michel, that's actually a guy, who's bringing some balance to their offense in the run game. And Bill Belichick loves to run that ball. And come November, December, which is going to set up some play action and boost Tom Brady's numbers come that time. So definitely will be in that consideration come December.
Yeah, and in Belichick, they trust, man.
Yeah.
They TB12 just delivers it.
Mm-hmm.
So that's all the questions we have today, and I wanted to give the panelists each, a couple minutes to talk about whatever they want to talk about. So LotusTile, what's the spiel, man? What's the spiel?
So the spiel today, we're going to keep it in football. Who are your guys' favorites for the Super Bowl this year? AFC, NFC. I would probably say AFC favorites at this point are looking like the Chiefs, but you know, Tom Brady can easily come around and be there at the AFC Championship. I really like the Steelers. You know, if we can potentially get Le'Veon back, but there's been a lot of turmoil, but today has shown some promise, and we're always an AFC favorite. So, you know, we are potentially in that race, but right now I really love the Chiefs in the AFC Championship game and representing the AFC. NFC, I'm really liking the Rams, but I think my man Drew Brees can do it. I think Drew Brees and the Saints are gonna represent the NFC, and we're gonna have a NFC representation for the Saints, AFC representation of the Chiefs in the Super Bowl.
So right now, on record, who wins?
On record, who wins? I would say the Saints.
Okay.
That's 2 Super Bowls for Breeze, you think? Okay, I mean, if that matchup were to happen, it'd be an old vet, like a 39-year-old against Mahomes. That'd be a very crazy matchup.
Crazy matchup.
I just had this feeling it's tough, you know, like it's tough. It's kind of just lame to go with the hot team, 2 upstart undefeated, but it's like you get that feeling, that sense sometimes. I don't know if the Chiefs' defense is good enough to get there, but you just get a sense about a team in this league, in this NFL now, where it's all about the offense and how many points you can put up. The Chiefs have been so close so many times, and maybe they are just going to go 13-3 and then lose by, you know, blow a 14-point lead in the first round, as is the joke. But I don't know. I think something about this team and Mahomes' leadership. I have a feeling it's kind of like when Kaepernick took over the Niners, that, you know, and like, I don't know, just guided them to the Super Bowl, just that magic kind of. And I think I see that same sense of magic out of Mahomes, but I don't see them winning it all this year, just like you. I see that Rams team. They remind me of the greatest show on turf, one of my favorite teams to ever watch. One of the teams that got me hooked on football was those 99-01 Rams with Kurt Warner, Marshall Faulk, the Hall of Fame receivers. We all know. And it's crazy that we haven't – I don't think we've really seen an offense like that since then, and it's the Rams again. It's so crazy to think about, and I wish that they would, you know, go back to those uniforms that they wore back in '99, because I don't know what they're wearing now. This team needs better uniforms to fucking to assert how good they are on the field. Excuse my language. I hope you got the picture. Passionate about uniforms, and I'm passionate about, you know, the way these men playing football. It's like, it's beautiful to watch. Sean McVay, I think, is the second best coach in the league already. Yeah. I mean, he needs a Super Bowl ring to prove that, but I mean, to me, he doesn't. I mean, he's just turning them around so quick, and it's just clearly just unbelievable play calling and scheme. Just look at, it's a great thing to watch. So let's go watch the end of that game. Why not? Yeah. It's clearly my camera is getting really dark in this room.
Steve, we'll give you the Spiel mic for a 1 minute or two.
Okay, yeah. So I'll make it quick. I just want to talk about kickers in the NFL. What's going on? Are they like getting phased out of the league because they can't even make an extra point anymore? I mean, this new rule is really changing the sport, but it's like you thought that they might be able to make more of these. It seemed like it was still routine for them at first, but now Mason Crosby missing all 5 kicks today, routine field goals except for 1 and an extra point. I mean, 0 for 5 in one day for a veteran former Pro Bowl kicker. That's crazy. Will he be out of a job next week? Will the Browns kicker, will he be out of a job after making a walk-off game-winning field goal and getting mobbed on the field? That thing barely went in from 37 yards out.
That was awful.
That was a horrible kick. And, I mean, if that was just a few yards back and he misses that, can you imagine? Can you imagine?
The mayhem in Cleveland. The mayhem in Cleveland.
Ties. They could have 3 ties very easily.
Yeah, they definitely they deserve
What is up with kickers? And then Graham Gano. He shows them how to time and boots a 63-yarder to win the game, not in altitude. Yeah. Like that might as well be the longest kick in NFL history, and he made it with the game on the line. If he misses that, they lose.
I would think in terms of kicking, Graham Gano, Randy Bullock, Robbie Gould, and like 2 others that are probably the most consistent kickers this league. We have only had maybe 5 consistent
You have to throw
kickers.
Justin Tucker.
Yeah, I can't forget about Justin Tucker and Bucker. Bucker has been getting more field goal attempts because but yeah, it's been pretty sketchy when it comes to kicking. It's hard to find a positive fantasy kicker.
The conditions. Maybe it's just. I don't know. Maybe it is what it is. I mean, even going into the season, man, we thought Boswell was gonna be like
Boswell,
the Pro Bowler. Instead he's over here, extra points, 30-yarders, 40-yarders. Like it's looking like a mess out there. But man, well, thanks, man. This was the inaugural show, or more like a recording, and most likely no one is going to see this one, but we'll take this and use it as a reference point to move forward. So, I want to talk about my spiel as well, give a little 30 seconds to exit us out. So in 2007, a professional team picked, with the 2nd pick in the overall NBA draft, they picked the young boy, the name of Kevin Durant, to the Seattle Supersonics. And on Friday, this man came back to his roots in the NBA and wore a Shawn Kemp jersey. The Warriors are playing like a preseason game. Everyone in Seattle, who is anyone, was there. I think Russ and Sierra were there. They were loving it. And, KD's had so much light as the bad guy, going to the Warriors, going to a team that beat him in the Western Conference Finals. We kind of forget that, Seattle had a big part of, bringing him to the NBA and bring that culture, even though it was only 1 year, and then after that they went to Oklahoma City. So what I'm begging the NBA is, come on, bring an NBA team back to Seattle, man. We need it. We need it. We need a team. Build us a new arena. That key arena is so small, man. Let's get us a new team. Let's get us in the NBA. Let's get Seattle in the NHL, man. Let's make Seattle a great sports team again. Or the sports town, I mean. Seahawks are weak. Mariners are weak. We need to seize the moment. Let's get the NBA and NHL ready. All right, man. Tune in next Sunday. I'll catch you guys later. Peace.
Thanks for coming, guys. Peace.
See you guys.